Hey everyone, my name is Jessie Jennings and welcome to Let's Paint Live, our monthly painting party where we teach you to paint a full painting in just about an hour. Tonight we'll be painting Just Keep Swimming, which is super fun for summer. It's June 1st and everybody's starting their summer vacations and having fun, so this is a really good one to paint before your beach trip, or maybe you're on your beach trip, so that would be really fun to do with your friends and family for some relaxation time. So this cutesy turtle we'll be painting tonight with our 24-piece Let's Paint Live kit. So just like always, we use our Let's Paint Live kit, which you can purchase on plaidonline.com, and with that kit you can paint any of our Let's Paint Live paintings. So every monthly painting we've done over the past several years, I think it's been about 5 years we've been doing this. So there's tons of paintings for free on plaidonline.com and right here on Facebook. So make sure to check out that kit so you can paint along with us each month. So that said, I'm going to go through the supply list of what we'll be using tonight. And again, the paints and brushes that I'll be listing are in that kit. So if you have the kit, you've got everything you need. We're going to be using Wicker White, which is just our white color. We've got French Blue, Dutch Aqua, Lime Green, Daffodil Yellow, and then you're going to need Navy. I also have my brushes here tonight, so I'll be using a #1 flat brush, so just a large-ish size brush. This will mostly be for base coating and things like that. I've got my #12 flat. We'll be using this one a lot, so a small to medium flat brush. A small liner brush. This is a #5 round. And then I'm also going to use a larger liner brush. I like to just have this one in my back pocket, so this is a #12 round. And then also on the event listing tonight, we listed Treasure Gold as an add-on. So that's not in the kit, but that's really fun to add onto paintings. So you can see here we have all this really pretty metallic details. So you can use Treasure Gold and your liner brush for those, or you can use a paint pen. It's kind of up to you, either way. Treasure Gold gives you kind of a shinier look than the paint pen, but the paint pen's quicker. So it's kind of up to you which one you want to do. I'll be painting on a 10 by 10 inch canvas tonight. So you can use any size canvas you want. You'll just have to scale up your painting up or down. If you have a rectangular painting, you might need to do some adjusting to kind of fit your turtle on there, or up canvas I mean, but that shouldn't be a problem. I've also got my water basin here and my paper towels, and then I have a hair dryer over here to my right as well. So since we're trying to keep our painting in just about an hour, we'll be doing some drying in between steps so that we can continue painting without having to wait for the dry time. As always, we have Caitlin here moderating, so Caitlin will be answering any questions and reading them to me. So yeah, if you have any questions throughout the painting or comments, please let us know where you're from. Let us know if you're painting along, if you have any summer plans. We'd love to hear if you're going on trips and things like that with family, so go ahead and hop in the comments, and we'd love to hear from you. So Caitlin, unless there's any questions about supplies, we can go ahead and get started.
Nope, I think you're good.
Okay, cool. Okay. So the first thing, I also should mention too, I didn't say this, I'll be working on this palette paper. So you need something to put your paint on, whether it's a paper plate or some wax coated palette paper like I have here. Sometimes I like to do like a plastic plate with aluminum foil over it so I can just throw the foil away and I don't get my plate messy. It's totally up to you. But I'm going to start by grabbing some of my navy blue, just a little bit, a little dot, I don't need much for this first step, and my liner brush. This is my #5 round brush. And I'm going to get some water, and I'm going to water down my paint a little bit. And I don't typically like to water down my acrylic paints because it makes them transparent and not as opaque, and I like to keep my paint opaque when I'm painting. But what we're going to do is kind of sketch out our outline for our turtle. So, of course, we're not using a pencil, so it's not really sketching, but it'll kind of the same idea. We're doing really thin paint so we can paint more easily, and also so we can cover it up better later on. So we're going to start by painting the shell of our painting. So you can see here the shell is about the size of my hand. I have a pretty average size hand, maybe a little on the small side, but it's about the size of my hand with my fingers spread pretty wide. So you kind of want to see where you want your shell to be. You can see the way I have my painting oriented here, my original, it's kind of down more towards the bottom right. So I have room for the head up here, and then the legs are kind of going off the canvas, so it kind of looks like it's swimming away from us. So you kind of want to just find where your shell will be on your painting. So right about here, and I'm just going to mark off, I'm doing it left-handed, the edge of my hand, just the edge of my fingers, so I kind of get a good idea of where my shell is going to be. And I always like to kind of map out things like that so that when I start painting, I'm not like, oh gosh, I went off the canvas and I didn't mean to. I kind of have a good direction. I know where I'm trying to go. So we're going to start by painting this. It's just going to be a big oval. That's all this is.
So there's no template.
There's no template for this painting. No, we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint it by hand. So if you want to tilt your canvas, if it's easier so you can make your oval this way, that's fine too. So I kind of made some dots in between the dots I made around my hand. So I'm just going to drag. I'm hardly putting any pressure on my brush. I just want that nice thin line so I can see where my shell is going to be. You can add some more water if your brush is dragging. And you can always go back and change it. So if your shell's looking a little wonky, if it's bigger than you want it to be, or if it's smaller than you want it to be, if it's in the wrong place, you can always go back and edit. So say for example, I didn't want my shell to be so far down, I could just go back with my brush and make a new line that's a little bit further up, and we'll just paint over that other line. So you don't have to worry about extra lines and things like that. So I'll give everybody a minute just to paint their shell. Okay, so now the next thing I want to paint is the head. So I'm going to keep my canvas tilted this way just so then I can paint kind of going forward instead of at an angle, and that way I can make sure that my turtle is symmetrical. I can make sure it's the same on both sides. That's what symmetrical means. So I'm going to kind of put where I want the top of my head to be, so that's about 2 inches, so about 2 inches above that. I'm going to put a dot there so I know where my head's going to end. And this is just another oval, guys. So this is nothing crazy. It's just another oval, but it's kind of overlapping where the shell is. So another oval we're going to draw up here. You can use a pencil too if you prefer a pencil. That's fine. But I usually just use my paint. Another oval there. Give everybody a minute. Okay, so the next shape we're going to paint is our front flippers, our fins. I don't really know what it's called on a turtle, to be honest, but our front limbs here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of map out with some dots, just kind of how we did our big shell circle, just where we want our fins to start and stop. So the shoulder, you can see there's a little gap there, about a 1/2 inch. That's where it's going to be, and we want it to be the same on each side as best we can. About a 1/2 inch from the head. We're going to go out about 1 inch, kind of diagonally. And then they're going to end down here towards the bottom. So you don't want them to go off the canvas. Kind of just 1 inch from where the canvas ends is kind of where I kind of have it out there already, where we're going to end our fins here. So it should look something like this. And remember, I have my canvas diagonally right now. So if you don't have yours diagonal, it won't look like mine, but if you do, it should look like this. And then we're going to paint a line to connect these dots that we've made. And something to keep in mind, I know someone asked already if we're using a template. I very rarely teach you the template unless it's something that's very rigid and is not something that's organic, like a turtle, like an animal, or a flower, or something like that. Then maybe I'll put a template, but for things like this, I always want to teach you guys how to paint it yourself. So keep in mind when we paint these fins that they're very organic. You can see the lines are not perfect. They're a little wobbly. They're turtle fins. When you see a turtle, swimming in the ocean or wherever, they don't have perfectly smooth lines. They're a little bit irregular. So just think about that when you're drawing out your composition here, because it does need to be perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start connecting these lines. I'm going to go up here. And then around, I'm kind of following the curve of the shell. And then it's going to go in, just like that. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to go up here. I'm just thinning my paint down a little more since my brush is dragging a little. I'm going to follow the curve of the shell, and then I'm going to go in. So it should look something like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and paint our back fins here. And these are a little bit easier because it's kind of mostly going off the canvas. It kind of looks like he's swimming through our screen here. So I'm going to find where I want my fins to be back here. I'm going to mark lines so I know where to start and stop. Just kind of towards the rear here. You can see just kind of right almost where it meets the canvas's edge, but not quite. And we're going to have some fins going right off our canvas there. And this is going to swerve down a little because it gets kind of bigger off the canvas. And that is the shape of our turtle. Give everybody just a second to catch up, make sure you've got your little sketch down, your outline for your turtle shape. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush off. We're done with our outlining for now. And I am going to grab some of my Dutch Aqua. And this is going to be the body of our turtle. So now we're just going to go ahead and we're going to fill in with color. And then we're going to add lots of details on top, but we're going to start by just filling in the shapes with this color. So again, it's Dutch Aqua. I'm going to grab my number 12 flat brush. I'm going to pick up some paint. And we're going to fill in this entire turtle shape. So you can see here, the body is going to be this Dutch Aqua color. We're just going to go right inside the lines. You can cover up the lines a little bit, but you don't have to because we're going to kind of leave them in our painting to give it our shape sort of a pop at the end. So if you don't cover up your navy lines completely, that's okay. We're just blocking in that color. We're going to do all of the areas we just drew. We're just going to leave out the background. I'm just going right up to the blue lines and covering it up a little bit, but not all the way. How's everybody doing, Caitlin? Any questions?
Nope, just compliments.
Awesome. We're painting inside the shell too, and you can see we're going to add all this really fun shell detail later on. We're just going to get this down as kind of our base color before we start adding other colors to it. We'll be doing a good bit of mixing in this painting as well, so mixing paint's always really fun. And I also really like that when you mix paint, everybody's paintings kind of end up a little bit different at the end. Nobody's paintings are exactly the same, and I think that's really fun too. Everybody's colors are a little bit different. You can see every once in a while I might dip my brush in paint, and I don't want to water down my paint like I said in the beginning, but just if my brush is dragging a little on the canvas, I'll just dampen my brush just a little bit. I'm not putting a ton of water in there, just enough so my brush can really glide across the canvas. You don't need a ton of paint on there, just enough to cover the canvas. Keeping in mind that we're going to cover up a lot of this with other colors too. We just want to get that base color down. You don't want to glob your paint on there though. We don't want any texture or anything like that. So it should be looking something like this. So now I'm going to rinse off my brush, and then I'm going to dry it because you want this layer to be dry before we start painting all of the details in. So I'm going to grab my hair dryer, and I'm going to dry. And the great thing about folk art matte acrylic paints is that, just like in the name, they're matte. So it's really easy to tell if your painting is still wet. If it's shining at all, it's still wet. Your folk art matte acrylics will never dry with any sort of sheen to it. So that means it's still wet, so it's a good indication that you need to keep on drying. Okay, so that should be dry enough for now. Put my painting back down. And the next thing we're going to paint are these little scutes that go around the edge of our turtle shell. So to do that, we're going to grab our number 12 flat brush. So like I said, we'll be using this one a lot. This is the smaller of our flat brushes. And we're going to need a few colors on our palette. We've already got some of our Dutch aqua, so leave that. We're also going to need some of our French blue. We're going to need some of our lime green.
And will this video be posted later?
Yeah, great question. So all of our Let's Paint Live videos are posted on Facebook as soon as the recording ends. So as soon as this recording is over, you can find the video right on our Facebook page, and you can go back and rewatch it. You can rewind. You can pause it and things like that. And the same goes for YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's the same thing. As soon as this recording is over, the video will be posted on YouTube, so you can go back and, sometimes we go a little bit quick since we're painting in just about an hour. So sometimes it's nice to watch live and ask your questions and interact, and then go back later and paint along where you can pause and rewind and things like that. So yeah, great question. Okay, so I've got some lime green there. I'm going to grab a little bit of daffodil yellow. And then I also need some wicker white. Okay. So I've got my navy blue already on my palette, so I pretty much have all of my colors on my palette right now. So if you don't, go ahead and add them. So with our flat brush, our number 12 flat, we're going to start with our French blue, which is the lighter of our blues here. It's not the navy, but the lighter one. I'm going to pick up some of that on my brush. And like I said, we're going to start by painting these scutes all around the edge of our shell. So to do that, it's just going to be the width of our brush. So it's going to be really simple to do. I'm going to go to the edge, and I'm going to press down a little bit so I get kind of that like round-ish shape in my brush stroke. Show you what I mean. I'm going to press down right on the edge, and maybe, 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to paint a brush stroke just like that. And I'm going to do a few more of these all around. I'm going to go kind of randomly apart from each other because we're going to fill it in with all different colors, as you can see here. So a brush stroke there, kind of randomly spaced. I'm pressing down a little right up to the edge there. Okay, so it should look something like that. It's kind of tough to see on the camera against the Dutch aqua, but hopefully you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to wipe my brush off. And then we're going to do a little bit of mixing. So we're going to get this like darker green color here. So I'm going to grab some of my lime green and a little bit of my navy. Start with a little bit, and we'll mix that and see where we get. That's pretty good. I'm going to grab some of my Dutch aqua to kind of dull it down a little. I'm going for this color here. Grab a little bit of my French blue too. Yeah, there we go. It's getting a little light, but it's getting that dull green color I want, so now I'm going to add a little more navy blue to darken it. There we go. This kind of like dull bluish green is what we're going for. So we're going to do the same thing with this color that we just did. Obviously, we're going in between, but you want to go right up to the ones you've already painted. So when we're done, we don't have any gaps. Got a couple more colors to do, so you don't have to fill it in just yet. Okay, that's it, I think, because I need to leave some space for my other colors. I'm just going to wipe off my brush. I'm actually going to rinse it a little because we're going to use a light color now. So now I'm going to grab some of my lime green. I'm going to mix it with white. We're getting this like really light pale green color. I'm going to grab some wicker white. I'm going to mix that. A little more white, still pretty bright. Okay, that looks great. Kind of like a spearmint color. Okay, so whenever I mix with my brush, you don't want to go ahead and just start painting on your canvas. And the reason is because when you mix, you get so much paint in the bristles of your brush, and it's way too much, and it makes it really hard to control how it goes onto your canvas. And you always want to have control over how your paint is going on. So I like to rinse it off a little bit and get those, get all that paint out of the bristles. Make sure it's really, really dry by dabbing it on your paper towel. And then pick up paint fresh, so you have nice control over how much paint is actually going on there. So we're going to do the same thing with this color. Starting to fill in some of these gaps. Okay, rinse my brush again. And the last color that we're going to use is Dutch Aqua, which is the base color. So you don't have to worry about it. You can go in and paint it in some more if you want to make sure you keep that like nice shape. But we're just going to leave that Dutch Aqua for now. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we are going to paint the shape of our shell. So these are called scutes on a sea turtle or on any turtle. And you want to paint the shape of these. So it's kind of like a soccer ball. And I can show you what I mean by that. If you're not familiar with soccer, don't worry about it. I'm not a sporty person either. But if you are, it's kind of a similar pattern. So I'm going to grab my liner brush again, my number 5 round. And we're going to go back to our navy here. And again, I thinned it down just a little bit so that my brush will really flow. And we're going to start by painting one shape in the center of our turtle, and all of the rest of the scutes are just going to sort of spider web out from that. So I'm going to tilt my canvas again, just like we did in the beginning. Put this there so you can still see it. And I'm going to start towards the top center of my sea turtle. So I'm going to start, it's going to be a hexagon. Is that 6 sides? Hexagon?
Yes. Yes,
Yep, I think so too. Okay, cool.
89% positive.
Yeah. So we're going to do a hexagon. It's going to be 6 sides. So we're going to start by painting about a 1/2 inch line, horizontal line right there, and then one about 1 inch below it, and then 2 V's on either side to make that shape. So that's going to be the first scute on our sea turtle. Now we're going to continue it down, kind of like a chain. About 1 inch below that, we're going to paint another line and then connect it with 2 more V's. Just like that. And then a 3rd one below that. So we're going to paint our line and then connect it with 2 more V's. So you can see here how we're starting to get the outline of this shell. So now, basically all it's going to do from here is just sort of spider web out towards the edges. So I'm going to connect kind of just where we painted these scutes before. We don't want to go any further than that. So where that starts, I'm going to connect each of these corners. So I'm going to connect there, I'm going to connect there, I'm going to connect there, and kind of just fanning out. Connect there, every corner that we have. And you can see how quickly our turtle shell is forming. It's a really simple way to get that pattern, that very classic tortoise shell pattern. So there you go. Super simple.
That is so cool.
Thanks. Yeah, a really easy way to do it, and you really can't go wrong. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse my brush off. And now we're going to do something kind of similar to when we were painting the edge of our tortoiseshell. We're going to use these same colors that we've painted, or that we've mixed, I should say. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start filling in our scutes. So I'm going to grab my small flat brush again, my number 12, and I'll start with my minty spearmint color that I mixed. And so the key for this part is trying to avoid not having two colors next to each other. So we're going to pay attention to the ones we've already painted, and then as we paint these, we're going to pay attention to what's around it. We're just going to fill in these colors kind of like a coloring book, just trying to avoid having two colors touch, or two of the same color touch, I should say. Just filling it in. Okay, so I'm going to move on to another color, and can always go back to this one if I need some more of it. I want to make sure I leave room. I'm going to make sure your brush is always really dry before you pick up a new color. I'm going to grab some of my French blue. Just trying to strategically place it where it's not going to touch this one. It's kind of like a puzzle at times. It's not going to touch itself, but it's not going to touch any other areas that color is. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving on. And if it does, touch, it's not the end of the world. We're going to add some outlining, some details in between later on, so don't worry about it, but we're just going to try our best. I need to mix a little more of this dark green because it's kind of dried already. So that was some lime green, some French blue, and a little bit of navy. So start with that and see what we get. And it's looking good already. Okay, so I'm going to add some of this in now. You can see I'm not painting over the blue lines again. We're kind of keeping that outline a little bit. If you do paint over them, that's okay, but we're not necessarily trying to. Okay, so I'm coming towards the end here. Keep in mind, we're going to keep some of this Dutch aqua color because we want to keep that in the turtle, but that's our base coat. So I don't want any of my Dutch aqua to be touching. So right there, I don't like how that's touching. It looks kind of weird. There's a gap there. So I'm going to go back with one of my other colors. I'm going to choose a color that won't be touching any of the colors around it. So I'm going to go with this spearminty green color again. Fill that one in. And then kind of, if anything's like drawing your eye to it and looks funny and looks like you can see where there's two colors touching, and it's standing out like a sore thumb, go ahead and correct that now. Maybe switch some colors around, or add a color, or paint over a color. Just make sure that it looks good to you. And that's looking pretty good to me. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna dry our painting again. We wanna get all of this base coat dry. white, so it's nice and dry. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of finish up the shell. We're going to add some shading to our scutes here. So to add shading, you want to select a color that, if you already have it, is darker than the color, just a shade darker. We just want a little bit of shading so you can kind of see some dimension in that shell. It kind of looks flat here. You can see here it looks like it's maybe a little bit curved, and that's what we're going for. So some colors we'll just use another color to darken it, and some we might need to do a little bit of mixing. So to start, I'm going to pick up some of my French blue, and we're going to use this as the darker color for our Dutch aqua. So that's these our base color that we originally did. So my French blue is going to be the darker color for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of paint a broad brush stroke at the top of each of these. So I'm going to follow the line. So start here, and the top, you know, the top of the turtle. So up here, broad line going down, just kind of darken it. Broad line at the top, just gives it a little bit of a shadow. I'm going to do the same thing for the scutes here. Okay. And now I'm going to grab, we're going to mix a color for our French blue. I keep getting French blue and Dutch aqua mixed up. For our French blue. So I'm going to grab some French blue here. I'm going to grab just a touch of navy. You can see hardly any. A little bit of navy goes a long way. We're going to mix that in. We just want it to be a shade darker. Okay, need a little more navy. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, so you can see it's just a touch darker than when we started. And we'll do the same thing for our French blue areas.
And if you don't have French blue, what colors should they mix?
If you don't have French blue, you can use, you could use, if you've got like a true blue or an ultramarine, you can just add some white to that. It's like a little bit purpley French blue, so maybe even add like a touch of red if you've got it, and now I get something really similar, but as long as you have a light blue, it'll do the trick for this painting. Okay, so I did all of the shadow areas on my French blue scutes. So now I'm going to mix a color to go on this minty green color. So to do that, I'm going to grab some of my minty green color. I might need to mix a little more. That was lime green, a little bit of yellow, and white. A little more white. And it may seem a little counterintuitive to lighten it and then darken it again, but I just want to make sure I have that exact same color, and then I just want to mute it. I don't even necessarily want to darken it, but I just want to mute it some. So I'm going to grab a little bit of navy to do that. Should get something like that. That's a good color. Again, look how much paint I have on my brush. That's way too much paint. It's all up in the ferrule. This is the ferrule of your brush, and so that's just way too much paint. So we don't want all of that when we're painting. So rinse it off when you're done mixing. Make sure it's nice and dry, and then pick up some paint. And this is going to be for our spearmint areas. Okay, so that is it. I actually didn't add any, in my original painting, I didn't really add any shadowed area to the dark green one. So you can mix a darker color than that if you want, and go ahead and do that, but I didn't for mine. So I'm gonna rinse my brush off. Oh, you know what, I'm sorry. I'm gonna hang on to this brush. I forgot one more shading area. We're gonna go ahead and shade all of our limbs here. So I'm gonna pick up the color that we used. We're going to use our green for this. So this is the green that we originally mixed. So this was a combination of lime green, French blue, and navy. We're going to mix that up. And this is going to be the shadow color for all of our limbs here. So I'm going to go on the bottom edge of this, so like right on the inside of his body. So I'm just going to use my brush. I'm going to go right down there, And I'm kind of using my brush, I'm not using the flat part, I'm using the skinny part. So I'm kind of going vertically, just right up against the line there. Same thing here. Right up against the edge of his fin. And then down at the bottom too, same thing, just to give it some dimension. And then I'll add some here because we're going to be putting some eyes to the top there. So now we can rinse our brush. Give everybody just a minute to catch up if you're painting along. The next step we're actually going to do is our background. So we're kind of coming to the final steps of this painting. Nice, quick, easy one. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my larger brush. This is my 1 inch flat, or a 3/4 inch flat is great too for this. And we're going to add in this sort of like bubbly, it kind of reminds me of like sea foam, or like, you know, the white part of a wave. That, imagine the sea turtles like riding a wave in the ocean. So we're going to go ahead and paint this in. It's super easy to do. It's just a little bit of texture. And the colors we're going to be using are white and French blue. So if you need to add more of that to your palette, go ahead and do that now. I'm actually going to grab some clean white because mine's got a lot of green in it. So I'm going to start in small areas. So I'm going to start here at the bottom right, because it's closest to me. I'm going to put down some white. You don't need a ton. And I'm doing lots of tiny little brush strokes. And I'm going to go right into the details, right up to my turtle. And you're probably thinking, why are we painting white on a white canvas? But we're going to be adding the blue in. So now I'm going to pick up just the teensiest bit of French blue. Like I'm barely going to pick up any. You can see there's hardly any on there. And I'm just going to like brush some of it off too. And we're going to dab that on. We're just going to kind of work it into that white. See, that was even a little bit too much. We're going to work it into the white so you get that pretty foamy, bubbly look. And if your edges aren't perfect, don't worry, because we're going to go back and outline that with gold at the end. So we're just going to work it in like that. You can even pick up a little bit of navy. You want some areas to be darker. I'm going to keep turning my painting around just because it's more comfortable for me to paint this way because I'm right-handed. So I'm going to add in my white, small areas at a time so it stays wet. And now's a good time too if you have any like weird edges you want to correct, like if your shell, you have like an extra line outside your shell from the beginning, now's a good time to go ahead and cover that stuff up. Just dabbing my brush to get that nice texture. Gonna keep going around. You can grab a smaller brush too to get into some of the small areas if the big brush feels a little bit bulky. You can grab your smaller flat brush. This part's pretty relaxing, just going around your turtle and dabbing in that French blue. Everybody doing okay out there, Caitlin?
We are.
Good. You can see I just got some wet paint onto my turtle fin, and I just immediately wipe it away with my finger. As long as it's very wet, sometimes you can get away with that, so you don't have to do too much touching up at the end. You gotta do it when it's still super wet though, like immediate. Luckily, our folk art paints are non-toxic and water-based, so you can get it on your fingers as much as you want. It's not gonna hurt you. Coming to the last little bit here. Okay. So there you go. You have that nice textured background now for your sea turtle. So now we're going to go in, we're going to add some more navy details. So we're going to do some more outlining to just kind of clean up the shapes that we've painted, but we're also going to do some more details on our turtle itself. So I'm going to turn my painting back to its original orientation. I'm going to grab some of my navy out on my palette, so I need some more. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my liner brush. So again, this is a number 5 round brush. So I'm going to pick up some of my navy. I don't want to water it down too much because I want a really opaque line for this. Unlike in the beginning, it didn't matter how opaque it was. And by opaque, I mean not see-through, not transparent. And we're going to go back and we're going to redo those lines all around the edges of our sea turtle. So very lightly go around. I'm hardly putting any pressure on my brush. Starting with the top fin. And then here at the bottom of the fin, or on the inside I should say, I'm going to do kind of a squiggly line there. You can see we have that squiggle there that kind of just looks like a cute little turtle fin. Do a little squiggle there. I'm going to go around the head. Just following my original line. I'm just kind of re-putting it in so it's nice and bold. And it's going to give a really nice pop, especially once we add that gold in at the very end. Outline my head. And the more pressure you put on the brush, the thicker your line is going to be. And that's because when you press down, your bristles fan out, and so you get a wider line. If you put very light pressure on the brush, though, you're going to get a very thin line. So it kind of depends on what you want your line to look like, how much pressure you put on the brush while you're doing this outlining. If you want it very thin, put very little pressure on your brush. And if you want a thicker line, press down a little. Okay, so now I've done all my fins. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the inside of our turtle shell. We're going to paint around all these little scutes here. So you can see I'm going to go around every little one like little bricks. And it's really going to make this pattern pop. All these little areas that we painted are really going to stand out now. It's going to be really pretty. We were just kind of blocking in color earlier. And this is when it really comes to life. Making them nice and round. Like marshmallows or something. They're square, but they've got round edges. If your brush is really dragging, you can put a little bit of water on it just to help it go nice and smoothly. You may just need more paint on your brush though. Okay, don't forget the insides. Okay, so you can see now it's really bold. You can really see those beautiful shapes that we painted in. The pattern is really popping. Now we're going to add these cute little spots to our turtle. So same brush, same color. I'm going to start here. I'm going to go right along the edge. I'm just going to do little brush strokes. So they're like little ovals right along the edge of the fin. And then we're going to do some towards the center. And gradually getting smaller as we come inward. Nice and random, really tiny there. Just little dots with the tip of our brush. These cute little specks. They can go all the way down. And the same thing over here. I've been wanting to paint a turtle for Let's Paint Alive for a long time. These are my favorite animal. And I've been really looking forward to this class. And we're just on the head too. So we're going to kind of follow the same thing. We're going to do bigger in the middle and then kind of smaller going outward. So do a little brush stroke there in the center. And then some tinier ones around it. And I'm just putting little dots with my brush. And then we don't want to forget about our back fins. Add some little spots down there too. Okay, so the last thing we're going to add with our navy is our eyes. We don't want to forget our turtle's eyes. So just 2 eyes on the side of our turtle, either side of our turtle's head, right above where we put those shadows earlier. So they can be coming out a little bit. We want to make sure they're nice and even so our turtle doesn't have lopsided eyes. And there we go. So guys, this is the basic painting for this. If you don't have treasure gold or a paint pen, you're going to go ahead and stop here. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to add these beautiful gold highlights because I think it just adds something really pretty to this painting. It makes it a little more special. So whenever you are painting with a paint pen, you want to make sure you are painting on a completely dry surface. You don't want the paint to be wet at all because it'll gum up your tip. That said, if you're using treasure gold, go ahead and grab your liner brush and you're pretty much going to do the same thing we just did with all of our navy blue here, but you just want to make sure you don't cover up all the navy blue. You can see I've got some showing through here, so you can kind of see those pretty outlines. There's definitely some navy blue showing here, so make sure to leave some of that navy blue showing. And again, do that with your liner brush. So I'm going to go ahead and dry my painting now before I do my paint pen.
People have also mentioned that you forgot the tail.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you. That's why we need the comments, people. I noticed it earlier. I was like, oh shoot, I need to add the tail. And then I forgot again. Okay, we cannot forget. So I've got my liner brush here. I'm going to grab some of my base color, which is this Dutch Aqua. And it's just a little curved tail here at the bottom. Thank you guys. Gosh, I would have just blown right past it. We're going to use some of this green color to shade it. And then I'm going to rinse this off and we're going to outline it with our navy. Super simple. It's a little bit wet, so we may need to go back with the navy again later, but now he has a tail, poor guy. Almost left him hanging. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and dry it. Okay, I think that's dry, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my paint pen. And again, guys, I'm just using a paint pen because it's quicker just for the purpose of this class, but I recommend Treasure Gold just because it's going to be a lot shinier. So now I'm just going to go over the blue lines very loosely. The goal is not to cover up the blue lines. You want to still see some of that. It's just to give a little bit of extra detail and make it really shiny. So again, just outlining all these lines that we just put in. And again, you really want to make sure that they're dry before you start doing this. I'm also going to circle my little turtle freckles that we did. See, I'm being really loose with it, so they're not perfect. I've said that a lot in this painting. It does not need to be perfect.
So you don't outline the eyeballs?
I didn't. You can if you want to. I didn't in my original one. It's kind of up to you, I guess. To be honest, I couldn't tell you why I didn't, but I didn't, so I didn't this time either. We can, unless you want to outline the eyeballs, we can do that. Why not? There we go, guys. So that is Just Keep Swimming, a really fun turtle painting. That's perfect for summer, perfect to do when you're at the beach. You can go back and watch it later on when you're on your family vacation, something fun to do in the evening, and that kind of you can do together. So thanks guys so much for watching. As always, this video will be posted immediately after the live is over, so on YouTube and on Facebook, along with all of our past Let's Paint Live. So again, guys, we're using our 24-piece Let's Paint Live kit. You can purchase that on plaidonline.com/Let's Paint. You can paint any of those paintings with us. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to premiere next month's paintings. This is July's Let's Paint Live. And we actually have a very special guest. So a lot of you are going to be super excited about this. Believe it or not, they have never taught a Let's Paint Live class. You've seen lots of them teaching here on all of our Plaid channels, but never Let's Paint Live. So next month, we're going to have Andy Jones here in the studio painting Let's Paint Live. So this really beautiful oyster shell with a beautiful little pearl here. Another one perfect for summer, perfect for beach season. So make sure to check that out. It's the first Thursday of every month right here on